All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And well, first of all, Ian, welcome. I am
Thank you,
so
sir.
Yes, and this interview has been over a year in the making. Usually, when I'm talking about who made the connection, it's usually one person. But in our case, there's actually two, because Jeremy Wise connected us over a year ago, and you and I actually had an interview scheduled, and I remember it. It was in January of this year, so like almost a year ago.
Almost exactly a year, yeah.
Stuff came up, and I know my brother and his wife got COVID. I had to fly to Texas. Something was going on in your world too, and we just never did that interview. And then now Michelle reconnected us, and just recently, and I ended up doing an interview for your podcast, and now here we are doing. And I got to tell you,
great.
Ian, man, that was such an amazing experience doing the interview
thank you.
for your podcast. That was such an awesome experience. And so thank you for that. And I'm honored
to
have you here now. And so what I'd like to do is just start off by turning it over to you, so we can spend a little bit of context here. We can talk about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you do, and then also give us a little bit of background and context, and give us the backstory of how you got into that. And here I am. I just realized too, I didn't say Michelle's last name. It's Michelle Prince is who connected us.
Yes.
So we had Jeremy and Michelle. So kudos to both of them, and thank you.
They're great. They're awesome.
Because what a testament to everything that this podcast is all about to start with. And so, okay, Ian, with that, I'll just turn it over to you.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, I mean, I run a company. I wrote a book called Video Testimonials That Land the Big Fish. I've been doing customer story videos and YouTube videos for about 15 years, for service professionals, doctors, lawyers, dentists, up to big name business consultants. We've worked with like Fran Tarkenton and Gino Wickman and my buddy Jason Swank and Tanner Larson and our friend Tony. We just did a bunch of videos for him for ship offers. We create that strategy, and it's and then so I wrote the book, and we founded videocasestory.com, which is an evolution of our agency. Because I say really, the funny part about the book is you don't want testimonials. You want people to tell their story. You don't want people to talk about you, right? No one can. Kevin, you're awesome. No one wants to hear about you until they know what you can do for them, right?
Right.
That's right. And that's why you're such a great giver. Everyone said how awesome you are, and then they want to help you out, but really I found, the evolution of it was 15 years ago when Google bought YouTube. I was like, and I was big into SEO. I'm like, this is going to change everything, because we're going to be able to get people's stories right in front, like the ideal story in front of the ideal person when they're looking for it. And I knew YouTube. I knew then YouTube was going to be big. I didn't realize how big. So we did a lot of other stuff. We did websites and funnels and Facebook ads and stuff, but really YouTube's blown up over the past few years. So we do a lot of YouTube SEO and a lot around collecting the stories. We have a whole process around it, which I've developed over the 15 years, because not only do you make these awesome videos, but the answer to almost every business question is somewhere in your customer story. And so, well, your positioning statements, people said, I've been in these big boardrooms, like in New York City, in high rises with 50 big name people, and you're having these meetings that are, useless, because they're not talking about the customer, right? They're trying to come up with marketing slogans and stuff, and like the customer has it, and you're looking for keywords. Your customer has it. You're looking for hooks for your next sales letter. Your customer has it. You're looking to how to develop your website. Your customer has it. Your About Us page, the second most used page on the website. We discovered that like 7-8 years ago. We started designing these converting websites. It's all around the customer. About Us is still about them. So, and I'm not the one who invented that. I talk about in the book a lot. One of my favorites is Walt Disney. And I like Disney stuff, but I really love Walt and what he did. And, up until the day he died, he was in the park talking to his customers, watching them. One of the stories I tell in the book is, he would sit and count the paces that someone took between the time they bought a hot dog and they threw away the wrapper, and then he put a trash can everywhere. One time a person came to him and said, "Hey, the customers keep walking over this grass. We need to put a fence there." He's like, "No, we need to put a sidewalk." I mean, I think that's just the perfect example of, this guy. It's hard to understand how famous Walt Disney was. Like, I don't think there's Taylor Swift, right? But there's a lot of people in the world that kind of know who Taylor Swift was. Everyone in the world knew who Walt Disney was.
Yeah. And
he would still go out and do this stuff. That's how important customer stories are. And that's why I developed this whole system around it. I love it. And now we teach we do it. And we also teach other agencies on how to do it for their clients to improve their marketing, their business, et cetera.
Okay. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. So I know you mentioned Tony and stuff. And so what is, I can only imagine how much joy and satisfaction you get from the work that you do and stuff. Give us an example. I mean, maybe you can share a name, maybe it's not sharing a name, but what's a recent project that you guys have been working on that you're just like, man, I love it's awesome being me, because I love doing what we do.
Well, I mean, I love helping other agencies, like people, because I've been doing this for so long. Before we found our agency, I worked in a really big marketing company as a consultant and in New York City. And so, you know, we've developed all these systems and stuff, and I love helping other agencies like remember what they're doing is great, because it's like we were talking about before, it's really tough right now to be a digital marketer for someone else, because everyone expects the world. They expect this magic because people are selling that. They're selling that, oh, I can make Facebook ads that are going to get you $25,000 clients a day, right? And every day. And it's like, that's not really how it works. But so I love helping those, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. But, you know, from the case story side, you know, we still work with a lot of law firms. Okay. And we just did one that was an amazing 30-minute story about a lawyer and attorney, Steve Williamson in New York, that helped this woman who was a women's rights pioneer. And she was injured at the college where she was teaching, volunteering, and then they refused to help her with her medical expenses. And I mean, and she was completely immobilized. Her life was pretty much destroyed from this simple little accident that they could have saved. And it took like 5 or 6 years. And we're just telling the story. And it's really interesting too for me, because it's also the story of the juries. And you know, like things that I get to discover lots of insider stuff. And this was like, hey, you know, attorneys can talk to jurors and how important the jury system is. And it's a really great story. So that's one of the ones that I love doing. But I just, you know, from our standpoint, I love when a client first gets, like, that's what's really cool about YouTube and video marketing is for a lot of these big name professionals, it transforms their business. And they're like, someone walks in the door and they're like, they acted like I was their best friend. And I'm like, I've never met the person before. And that to me is so cool, because it's like when someone comes in pre-sold with working on you, and all of a sudden you're like kind of this little bit of a celebrity, but they feel like they know you. It can, especially for great service providers, people that do great work, you know, because a lot of these people don't want to market. And I'm like, this is a different kind of marketing. It's not like advertising. Yeah. So, you know, that's it. And then what's really cool is when we do those stories, you know, we help them get more clients. We help them help more people. And then we get to do the stories of the people that they helped. And it's really a cool thing. Everyone makes money. Everyone has fun. Everyone enjoys their business more. And you help more people.
Yeah, they get to make a bigger impact through their business. That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Ian, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Ian, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I guess my wife, right? That's number one.
I guess your wife, yeah. You and me both, man.
Yeah, without her, she, she's amazing. She does so much. She's part of the business. She's amazingly talented. She has a master's in 3D design animation from NYU. So on the video set standpoint, she's so talented, and super smart and beautiful. So, there's always that relationship, which if you can find that, that's an amazing one to have. And I'm very lucky. But then, I've got amazing family who support me. A lot of I have an extended family. So I've got a cousin who's very supportive. I got family that's very supportive. And I think it's always a series of relationships, right? There's always these little moments where someone comes and says the right thing to you at the right time, or says something supportive when you need it. And giving to those relationships too. Like Tony, I talk to on a regular basis, and Jeremy, I talk to like 20 times a day sometimes, and he calls me. But it's like you give, and it's great to give. I love helping these people. And then, when the time comes, they've been supportive. My good friend Greg Hickman, who's amazing. And I talk to him regularly, and Tony and Jeremy and my friend Jason Swank, my friend Darby, who works with him. It's just, I'm on the phone. I hate being on the phone, but it's like none of these people live here anymore. So, or live here. So I have to talk to them on the phone, and each one of those relationships has been super beneficial in some way, shape, or form to me. So, it's nurturing them. And, and then the relationship with Jeremy came from a relationship with my friend Scott Gray. And, you can look back on all the relationships and how they led to other relationships. And all my clients, for the most part, are friends. Right. And in some way, shape, or form, my great friend Doug Richards, who's also a client, and I talk to him all the time. It was really cool because we helped to transform his business. He's helped our business. And, it's just always people to talk to. So these relationships have led to millions of dollars, right?
You bet.
And they're so, so important to us.
Yeah. You've mentioned a number of people. You mentioned your wife. And by the way, what's your wife's first name?
Jessica.
Jessica.
So yeah, my last name's Garlic. Her maiden name was Curry. So it was the Curry Garlic wedding.
I love it. That's awesome. And so, you mentioned your wife, Jessica, you mentioned family members, you mentioned Tony Grebmeyer, Jeremy Wise, Jason Swank, Doug Richards, you mentioned a few other people. And if you look back over the years on these relationships, I'm going to, I know you'll be able to come up with tons of examples for the question that I'm going to ask, but I'm going to challenge you to just come up with one example. It'll be something that it's going to be the one that just pops right to the top of your mind. So you look back over the years and all of these relationships, what is an example where you personally, you got to make a really big impact, and hands down, that would have never happened if not for your relationship with whoever that was? And like I said, I know you got lots of examples, and I'm challenging you to just one.
Wow. I don't know. It's like this. That's a tough one. I think part of the problem is I don't, it's like I'm always looking forward. And I think a lot of us entrepreneurs do. And it's like, I need to remember what we've done and accomplished and all the people that we have. And I mean, not to push on the case stories, but this is what's great about case stories is you get to record these things and have them ready when you do. Geez, I mean, I think, geez, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm like thinking of I got to have an impact. I wish I should have prepared for this.
That's all right, because that's always a question that I ask that I never tell anybody in advance. And every once in a while it does. And you know what? I totally get that. I totally get that because you're one of the few people that you have lots of relationships in your life like me and stuff. and
Yeah.
you're just like so incredibly grateful for these people. And you know what? You're right. We are, entrepreneurs. That's our thing, is to continue. We're always looking forward.
Yep.
And Dan Sullivan calls it. There's this thing he calls the gap, and it's
Yeah.
this vision that we have for where we're going. And the thing is that vision constantly is changing, because the further we go forward, the more we realize is possible, and so the vision is constantly getting updated and stuff. But
Yes. Yeah.
it's this looking back at where we've come from. That's when we really get to see. It's like, oh, jeez, look how far we've come from where we started at and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's such an awesome exercise and stuff. And so, but I mean, you know what? I mean, let's look at these two, because I don't personally know all the other people that you mentioned, but I do know Tony Grubmeyer and Jeremy Wise.
Yeah.
And so let's just focus on those two guys for a minute, because you shared with me before we hit the record button that you've been able to do some cool stuff with Tony recently too, and stuff that you've been
Yeah.
able to
Yeah, we haven't gotten his videos out yet. He's finishing them up right now. But yeah, I mean, I love telling Tony's stories, because he's, to me, creating Tony's stories, he's created millionaires, right? And he's helped people create these amazing businesses. And I love capturing those stories because it's so cool. And it's funny. That's what I love about what I do. It's like, you're onto something when you're like, oh, I need this. When you're doing the story and you're like, oh, I need this. I'm doing it myself. I'm like, I need to go work with Tony. I need to shut everything down and start my own e-commerce company. And Tony's going to fulfill everything, because he's so good at it. And and I love that. And I love being able to tell the stories of the people Tony's impacted, and also his team, because he's built such an amazing team and an amazing company. And it was really great to like capture those stories of like the team that he's built, which is fantastic too.
Yeah.
And how they impact people, because it's, obviously Tony can't do them themselves. So I'm lucky to be able to, if we can get Tony 2 or 3 more of those clients that, become millionaires, it's a win for Tony, but it's also a win for, those people themselves and transforming their lives. Because there's a lot of those people, we know them too, that fall into the entrepreneur trap, that are, they might have a $2 million, $3 million e-commerce company, but they're spending another $1 million a year than they're making. And so, going into debt, and Tony really helps them with that, which I love. I love it. Yeah. And, my friend Tanner Larson, who I didn't talk about, what Tony knows also, we got to capture some of their stories. And, Anna is one of my favorite ones. That's one of my favorite case stories of all time. And it's not like the best video. I mean, it's okay. It's good. But it's really a story of like how she transformed from a mom struggling to this amazing entrepreneur because of being in the group with Tanner and his team. And to me, helping them find more of those moms, that are struggling. Because it's one thing, it's like, and that's kind of where I don't do a lot of, I mean, I can, and we do some enterprise level, but to me, it's like, if I go work with IBM and make them another $10 million, whose life am I impacting? But if I go help Tony find 3 more entrepreneurs that, go from, making struggling to making $1 million a year with ship offers, then that to me is so fulfilling.
Yeah. And, that is because what you just said, because of who we choose to align ourselves with. So I'll give you an example, because in 2021, I had an experience where, I had a group of 52 entrepreneurs that I was serving, and they were all amazing entrepreneurs. But one of them announced how, on their monthly call, that they had just added $1 million of revenue to their business over the last 30 days after talking with one of the other members. And I was like, I don't want to take up all the time on the group call here, but can you and I, Misty, can we talk one-on-one? Because I would love to get all the details of how this unfolded. And so we had that conversation. And what came from this, what I found out is, the other guy in the group, Richard, had shared this process that they'd been using in their business, and it just so resonated with Missy, and it was in such alignment that she was like, my gosh, I can't believe we're not doing this. We can totally do this. And
That's
it
amazing.
just fits right in with what we're doing. And not only did they add the $1 million in revenue, but simultaneously they also added 3 years of ongoing recurring monthly revenue, because that was the offer that they made.
Wow.
And she did let me know that, she goes, I would like to sell this leg of the business in the next couple of years. And so we're like in a really good spot right now with all this recurring revenue. And by the way, she did sell that leg of the business. And
That's awesome.
and that's when, for me, I realized, wow, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in this, and like Tony really helped me to see the light on this, because like for me, it was anybody who would become an entrepreneur, that takes cojones in my eyes, and so like they just automatically get my respect. But I can't serve all of them with my unique abilities and my gifts. But what I realized with that situation, I was like, and what I also realized is like there was only like maybe 5 or 6 people in that group at that time who had the foundation to be able to even a result like that to even be possible. And I was like, but what if I started exclusively focusing on entrepreneurs like that? Entrepreneurs who are already established, who are already making a big impact, and I can bring my gifts and my skill sets to the table to allow them to make an even bigger impact. And that was an absolute game changer. And like that's kind of what you've been talking about too, is that same thing. And Tony is like, Kevin, he said, I would not have anybody as a client who isn't a friend first. It's friends first, then clients.
Yeah.
And I feel totally the same way. Why would we have a client that we wouldn't want to be friends with?
No, if you're gonna spend any amount of time with them, right? It's like
yeah.
No, I have great times with my clients and I love it. And then when we can impact their business, and the flip side of it's hard when things don't go right, because they are your friends and you care about them.
That's
right.
And
but I just always want to make an impact. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, Ian, for anybody that's listening to this going, man, Kev, I really love Ian. I love the way he shows up. I love what he stands for. How can they find out more about what you guys are doing? Any resources or websites or anything they can check out?
Sure. I mean, if you go to videocasetory.com, if you want to learn more about video case stories, the book is on there. And if you want to connect with me and they heard me on here and want any of the resources, they need help with YouTube, or they just want to connect with me on Facebook is a great place to do that. Just mention that they saw me on here, and that's a great place. And then you can connect with me on YouTube. I spend a lot of time on YouTube watching and making videos. So yeah, and if you're in Orlando, let me know. I'll grab a cup of coffee with you.
Perfect. Well, Ian, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
I think this is great. Being intentional is so important. Is so important with relationships. And I think Tony's taught me that, Jeremy's taught me that. They're great at maintaining those relationships and picking up the phone and thinking through it. And I love your advice that you gave on the podcast about telling people you said to do 15 people. I try, and what I've started doing is doing one person a day. And telling them what I like about them. And it's interesting, it's challenging, right? But it makes me think about the great things in people instead of the negative things, which I think is just an amazing piece of advice. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in this day and age, especially with everything that's been going on the last few years and stuff, just letting other people know, what we genuinely appreciate about them, and just reminding them that they are appreciated is so powerful, and it makes
so powerful
an impact on people.
And it's simple, and I think it's challenging to ourselves because we tend to drift the other way. but I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ian, thanks again for taking the time to have this conversation. Really appreciate you, and I'm excited to get this interview out there.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it.